This book is not written to change you. It is written to explain you. Chapter 1. The Inner World of Introversion. Human psychology has always struggled to understand silence. Loud behavior is visible, measurable, and easily interpreted. Quiet behavior is subtle, internal, and complex. Because of this, introverted people have often been misunderstood, not because they are unclear, but because society is impatient. An introverted person lives primarily in the inner world. This does not mean detachment from reality. It means reality is processed internally before being expressed externally. Thoughts are examined, emotions are filtered, and meaning is constructed quietly. What looks like passivity from the outside is often intense mental activity on the inside. From early childhood, many introverts learn that their natural rhythm does not match the external world. Classrooms reward fast answers, not thoughtful pauses. Social settings reward visibility, not depth. Families praise outgoing behavior and gently criticize silence. Over time, the introverted child begins to believe that their natural way of being is inferior. This belief creates a subtle psychological fracture. The person begins to perform instead of exist. They talk when they want to listen. They attend gatherings when they need solitude. They smile when they feel drained. This constant self-override produces emotional fatigue that often goes unrecognized. Introversion is not a lack of social ability. It is a different orientation toward stimulation. The introverted nervous system reaches optimal arousal quickly. Too much input leads to overload. Noise crowds, forced interaction, and emotional unpredictability exhaust the system. Solitude restores balance. Quiet restores clarity. This is why introverts often appear calm, even when they are deeply affected. Their emotions move inward, not outward. They process feelings privately, replaying conversations, analyzing tone, words, meaning, and intention. They feel deeply, but selectively express. This selective expression is often mistaken for emotional distance. In truth, introverts are emotionally rich. They experience joy, quietly, sadness, deeply, love, intensely, and pain internally. Because they do not externalize emotions frequently, they are often underestimated emotionally. Yet when an introvert bonds, the bond is profound. When they care, it is deliberate. When they commit, it is sincere. Introverts tend to form fewer relationships, but with greater depth. They prefer authenticity over frequency. One meaningful connection nourishes them more than many superficial ones. This preference is not avoidance. It is psychological efficiency. Many introverts are highly sensitive to emotional environments. They absorb mood, tone, and unspoken signals. This sensitivity makes them empathetic, but also vulnerable. They may carry emotional residue from interactions long after others have moved on. What was casual to someone else may linger deeply in their mind. This emotional retention can become a burden if not understood. Introverts may ruminate, replaying experiences, searching for meaning or resolution. Without healthy emotional release, this can lead to anxiety, self-doubt, and emotional exhaustion. Solitude for introverts is not loneliness. It is regulation. In solitude, the mind settles. Emotions reorganize. Identity recenters. Creativity emerges. This is why many thinkers, writers, scientists, artists, and philosophers throughout history have been introverted. Their work was born in silence. When introverts are denied solitude, their psychological health declines. Irritability, confusion, numbness, and emotional withdrawal appear. This is not rejection of others. It is self-protection. Introverted communication is often deliberate. Words are chosen carefully. Silence is used intentionally. When introverts speak, they usually mean what they say. They dislike unnecessary conversation, but value meaningful dialogue. This makes them powerful communicators when given space and respect. Unfortunately, modern culture values speed, volume, and constant output. This environment overwhelms introverted individuals and reinforces the belief that they must change to succeed. This belief is false. Introverts do not need to become louder. They need environments that respect depth. Their strength lies in observation, insight, patience, emotional intelligence, and strategic thinking. They lead quietly but effectively. They influence deeply, not loudly. Many introverts struggle with self-acceptance because they have internalized social expectations that contradict their nature. Healing begins when introverts stop asking what is wrong with them and start asking what is true about them. When introverts accept their nature, their confidence stabilizes. They stop performing and start aligning. Energy returns, clarity improves, and relationships deepen. They become grounded not because they changed, but because they stopped resisting who they are. This book will continue to explore how introversion affects love relationships, trauma, leadership, creativity, loneliness, mental health, and self-worth. Each layer will bring clarity, not pressure, understanding, not correction. If you are an introvert, this book is a mirror, not a manual. If you love an introvert, this book is a guide, not a judgment. Chapter 2: How the Introverted Brain Processes Reality. The introverted brain does not move quickly because it moves deeply. It does not rush towards stimulation because it is already engaged. From a psychological perspective, the introverted nervous system is naturally alert. Even in calm environments, there is internal activity, thoughts, emotions, memories, associations, and meanings flowing continuously. Because of this baseline activation, the brain becomes selective about additional input. When an introverted person enters a stimulating environment, the brain does not experience excitement first. It experiences assessment. The sensory system evaluates sound, movement, facial expressions, emotional tone, and unpredictability all at once. This rapid internal scanning is not conscious but automatic. It is the brain's way of maintaining equilibrium. When stimulation exceeds the threshold, the brain shifts into overload, and the individual begins to feel drained, distracted, or disconnected. This neurological pattern explains why introverts prefer fewer interactions but deeper ones. Depth is manageable. Surface-level chaos is not. In a meaningful conversation, the brain can focus, integrate, and respond thoughtfully. In noisy, fragmented environments, the brain must constantly filter information, which consumes energy quickly. Introverted people often process information through long internal loops. An experience is not simply registered and released. It is stored, examined, connected to past experiences, and evaluated for meaning. This reflective loop is why introverts often gain insight later rather than immediately. They may leave a conversation and only afterward fully understand how they felt or what they should have said. This is not slowness. It is layered processing. Memory in introverts tends to be emotionally rich. Events are remembered not only for what happened, but for how they felt. Tone, context, and subtle cues become part of the memory. This depth makes introverts thoughtful decision-makers, but also makes them susceptible to rumination. The same system that produces insight can produce overthinking when not regulated. Decision-making for introverts is rarely impulsive. Before acting, they consider impact, consequence, alignment with values, and emotional truth. This internal consultation creates hesitation only when speed is demanded. When allowed time, introverts often make decisions that are stable, ethical, and sustainable. The introverted brain is also highly imaginative. Because attention is directed inward, The mind becomes a fertile ground for ideas, scenarios, reflections, and creativity. Many introverts live with a constant internal narrative. They rehearse conversations, imagine outcomes, explore philosophical questions, and construct inner worlds. This imagination is not escapism. It is cognitive exploration. However, when introverts are pressured to suppress this inner processing, they begin to experience disconnection. They may feel mentally foggy, emotionally flat, or creatively blocked. This happens because their brain is denied its natural rhythm. Over time, this can lead to chronic stress and diminished self-trust. Social expectations often force introverts to respond faster than they are ready. In meetings, classrooms, and social settings, quick answers are rewarded. Introverts then learn to doubt their intelligence because their insight arrives later. In reality, many introverts produce their best thinking after reflection. When given space, their ideas are often more comprehensive and original. Another key aspect of the introverted brain is its relationship with reward. Extroverted brains often respond strongly to dopamine-driven rewards, such as novelty, social approval, and excitement. Introverted brains respond more strongly to meaning, mastery, and internal satisfaction. This is why introverts may not seek external validation, but deeply value personal integrity and purpose. This difference affects motivation. Introverts are not motivated by applause. They are motivated by alignment. When their work reflects their values, they become deeply committed. When it does not, they disengage quietly. Stress manifests differently in introverts. Instead of outward agitation, stress often becomes internal pressure. They may withdraw, become silent, or appear distant. This withdrawal is not avoidance. It is an attempt to regulate overload. Unfortunately, this behavior is often misinterpreted as indifference. Understanding this brain pattern changes everything. It reframes silence as processing withdrawal, as regulation, and solitude as necessity. When introverts understand their neurological design, they stop blaming themselves for needing space and time. The greatest mistake introverts make is forcing themselves to function like extroverts. This creates chronic fatigue and identity erosion. The greatest healing comes when introverts build lives that honor their cognitive rhythm. As this book continues, you will see how this brain pattern influences love attachment, trauma leadership, creativity, and mental health. Each layer connects back to this fundamental truth. The introverted mind is not slow, weak, or antisocial. It is deliberate, deep, and profoundly human. Chapter 3: Emotional Depth and the Silent Experience of Feeling. Emotions in introverted individuals do not erupt. They sink. They move inward where they are felt, fully processed, slowly, and often privately. This inward emotional movement is one of the defining characteristics of introverted psychology, and also one of the most misunderstood. When an introverted person experiences an emotion, the nervous system does not immediately seek expression. It seeks understanding. Feelings are examined internally before being shared. This creates emotional depth, but also emotional silence. Others may assume nothing is happening when in reality, everything is happening inside. Introverts often feel emotions more intensely than they appear. Joy is reflective rather than loud. Sadness is heavy rather than dramatic. Love is consuming rather than expressive. Pain is internalized rather than externalized. Because emotional expression is restrained, introverts are often underestimated emotionally, yet they carry rich emotional landscapes within. This internal emotional processing makes introverts highly empathetic. They sense emotional shifts in others even when unspoken. Tone, posture, energy, and silence communicate as much as words. This sensitivity allows introverts to connect deeply, but it also exposes them to emotional overload. They absorb more than they release. Many introverts grow up without learning how to discharge emotional weight. They are praised for being calm, mature, or low maintenance. Their silence is rewarded. Over time, they learn to manage emotions alone. While this builds self-regulation, it can also lead to emotional isolation. They may struggle to ask for help, not because they do not need it, but because they are used to carrying things quietly. Emotional memory in introverts is strong. Events are stored with emotional texture. A single sentence can echo for years. A moment of rejection can imprint deeply. This is not weakness. It is sensitivity. But sensitivity without support can become vulnerability. Introverts often replay experiences searching for meaning. They ask, what did this mean about me, about them, about the relationship? This reflection can produce wisdom, but when unchecked, it becomes rumination. Rumination is not thinking. It is emotional looping without resolution. Many introverts mistake this for intelligence when it is actually emotional fatigue. Because introverts process emotions internally, they may take longer to recover from emotional wounds. Breakups, betrayals, criticism, and loss can stay with them longer. Healing requires time, solitude, and emotional safety. When rushed, they may suppress rather than resolve. Love for introverts is profound. They do not fall easily, but when they do, it is with depth, intention, and loyalty. They seek emotional safety, understanding, and authenticity. Superficial connection leaves them empty. Emotional intimacy nourishes them deeply. However, introverts may struggle to express needs verbally. They expect understanding without articulation. This can create misunderstandings in relationships. Their silence may be interpreted as distance when it is actually contemplation. Emotional boundaries are essential for introverts. Without boundaries, they absorb others' emotions and lose themselves. Learning to say no, step back, and protect emotional energy is not selfish for introverts. It is survival. Many introverts feel emotions physically: tightness in the chest, heaviness in the stomach, fatigue in the body. This somatic response is the nervous system processing emotion internally. Without awareness, this can lead to psychosomatic stress. Society often encourages emotional expression through outward release. Introverts require different tools. Writing, reflection, music, movement, and solitude are effective emotional regulators. For introverts, healing often happens quietly. Understanding this emotional pattern allows introverts to stop judging themselves for being sensitive. Sensitivity is not fragility. It is perception. When guided, it becomes wisdom, compassion, and emotional intelligence. As we move forward, the next sections will explore how this emotional depth interacts with solitude, relationships, trauma, and self-identity. Every layer builds on this core truth. Introverted emotions are not hidden. They are simply held inward. Chapter 4. Solitude, Aloneness, and Psychological Restoration. Solitude for introverts is not a punishment or a sign of social failure. It is the natural state in which their mind and body regain equilibrium. While extroverts gain energy from engagement, introverts recharge in quiet reflection. Solitude allows the nervous system to regulate, emotions to settle, and thoughts to organize. Without it, introverts can feel scattered, anxious, and mentally exhausted, even if outwardly appearing calm. Many introverts misunderstand their own need for solitude because society often frames it as loneliness. From childhood, they are told to socialize, speak up, and be more visible. Over time, this creates internal tension where natural tendencies clash with external expectations. Solitude then becomes not only a refuge, but a necessity for psychological integrity. It restores clarity, creativity, and the ability to respond meaningfully rather than react impulsively. In solitude, introverts engage in deep internal dialogue. They process experiences, emotions, and decisions with deliberate attention. Every interaction, every observation, every feeling is examined carefully. This mental processing allows introverts to understand themselves and others profoundly. They notice patterns, anticipate consequences, and reflect on intentions and motivations. This inner richness often goes unnoticed by those around them because it is quiet, subtle, and invisible. Introverts often create mental frameworks or inner maps during solitude. They rehearse conversations, explore hypothetical scenarios, and imagine creative possibilities. This process is not escapism, but preparation. It allows them to act with precision and awareness when they do engage socially. Solitude is, in essence, a laboratory of thought, a sanctuary where ideas and feelings are refined. The contrast between solitude and social interaction is stark. Social engagement can be draining because the introverted brain is already highly active. Every interaction adds layers of sensory, emotional, and cognitive input. Unlike extroverts, who thrive on external stimulation, introverts must expend energy to navigate the noise, cues, and expectations of social environments. Without periods of solitude, their system becomes overloaded, leading to fatigue, irritability, or withdrawal. Introverts often experience a paradox. They crave meaningful connection, but need space to preserve their inner world. This balance is delicate. Too little solitude, and they feel suffocated and emotionally depleted. Too much isolation, and they risk disconnecting from shared experiences, leaving them misunderstood or lonely. Mastery of this balance is crucial for emotional resilience and psychological health. Solitude also nurtures creativity. Many introverts produce their most profound work in silence, whether through writing, art, scientific research, or problem-solving. The absence of external noise allows the mind to connect distant ideas, notice subtle patterns, and develop original insights. For introverts, thinking deeply is not a hobby. It is essential to their identity and contribution. It is important to recognize that solitude does not equate to social ineptitude. Introverts can navigate social spaces skillfully, often surprising others with insight, empathy, and eloquence. Their preference for quiet reflection equips them with patience, strategic thinking, and the ability to listen. Social success for an introvert is not measured by volume or visibility, but by depth, intention, and meaningful engagement. Society often misinterprets introverted withdrawal as aloofness, shyness, or disinterest. This misunderstanding creates pressure to conform, leading introverts to overextend themselves, adopt inauthentic behaviors, or feel inadequate. Recognizing that solitude is a strength rather than a weakness allows introverts to reclaim their natural rhythm, preserve energy, and engage in ways that feel sustainable and authentic. Ultimately, solitude is not merely a preference, it is a psychological requirement for introverts. It is the environment in which they thrive, think clearly, and connect deeply with themselves. Respecting this need fosters resilience, emotional stability, and creativity. It also enables introverts to approach relationships, challenges, and life decisions with awareness, thoughtfulness, and authenticity. As this book continues, we will explore how this need for solitude interacts with social behavior, communication, and relationships. We will see how introverts navigate love, intimacy, and emotional boundaries while maintaining inner balance. Each chapter builds on the understanding that introversion is not a limitation, but a profound and intricate psychological orientation that deserves recognition and respect. Chapter 5. Social Energy, Communication and Misinterpretation. Unlike extroverts, who often speak to think or engage quickly in conversation internally before this internal deliberation means their words are chosen carefully, their tone considered, and their silence meaningful. What may appear as hesitation to the casual observer is often deep reflection, an internal dialogue that weighs emotion, logic, and context before responding. Many introverts struggle in environments that reward rapid responses and constant verbal engagement. Classrooms, workplaces, and social gatherings often prioritize speed and volume over depth and insight. This cultural bias can lead introverts to doubt their abilities or feel pressure to conform to norms that do not align with their cognitive style. Yet when introverts are allowed to communicate on their own terms, they can articulate ideas with precision, nuance, and impact that surpasses superficial expression. Listening is a central skill for introverts. They tend to absorb more than they speak, noticing emotional cues, body language, and unspoken context. This heightened observation allows them to respond thoughtfully and empathetically, often creating connections that are deeper and more authentic than those formed through casual conversation. Introverts may appear quiet, but their attention is active, their understanding profound, and their empathy rich. The preference for meaningful dialogue over small talk is another characteristic of introverted communication. They may avoid casual chatter, not out of disinterest, but because it offers little emotional or intellectual nourishment. Introverts invest energy selectively, prioritizing conversations that provide purpose, connection, or insight. This selectivity preserves their energy and prevents cognitive overload, enabling them to engage more fully when it matters most. Silence is a tool for introverts. It is not absence, but presence in its quietest form. In conversation, silence allows them to process input, consider alternatives, and craft thoughtful responses. In relationships, silence communicates reflection, attentiveness, and care. Misinterpreting this silence as aloofness or disconnection overlooks the intentionality behind introverted behavior. Introverts also manage social energy differently. While extroverts often gain vitality from external stimulation, introverts expend energy to navigate social landscapes. Long gatherings, crowded spaces, or emotionally charged interactions can be exhausting. Recognizing this dynamic helps introverts honor their own limits, set boundaries, and cultivate interactions that are sustainable rather than draining. Relationships with introverts require understanding of these patterns. Patience, space, and authenticity are essential. Pushing an introvert to perform socially or verbalize emotions on demand can create stress and disengagement. Conversely, allowing them the freedom to participate in ways that align with their internal rhythm fosters trust, connection, and meaningful collaboration. Introverted individuals are not socially deficient. They are selectively social. They often thrive in one-on-one interactions, deep group discussions, or environments where reflection is valued over speed. Their communication style emphasizes quality over quantity, depth over breadth, and intention over spontaneity. Conflict presents a unique challenge for introverts. They may retreat or remain silent during disagreements, not out of avoidance, but because they are processing internally. This internal processing enables them to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. However, if their need for reflection is ignored or pressured, frustration can build, sometimes resulting in unexpected emotional release or withdrawal. Introverts also communicate through actions as much as words. Thoughtful gestures, attentive listening, and consistent reliability often speak louder than verbal expression. This form of communication reflects integrity and emotional intelligence, emphasizing substance over style. Understanding introverted communication requires shifting perspective. It is not about volume, speed, or visibility. It is about intention, depth, and authenticity. Recognizing the patterns of introverted speech, silence, and social energy allows introverts to navigate the world with confidence and allows others to appreciate the richness of their interaction style. As this exploration continues, we will examine how introverted tendencies shape love, intimacy, attachment, and emotional connection. We will see how quiet reflection, selective engagement, and deep processing inform relationship dynamics, loyalty, and vulnerability. Each insight reinforces the fundamental truth that introversion is not a limitation, but a sophisticated psychological orientation that shapes life, thought, and interaction in profound ways. Chapter 6: Love, Attachment, and Intimacy in Introverted Personalities. Every connection is filtered through layers of reflection, emotional assessment, and value alignment. This careful approach can appear slow or cautious to outsiders, but for introverts, it is the only way to protect emotional energy while ensuring authenticity in relationships. Because introverts process experiences internally, their attachments are often profound. Once they commit, they engage fully, emotionally, and mentally. Love for an introvert is immersive, deliberate, and sustained. They notice subtle shifts in tone, mood, and intention, often understanding their partner's unspoken feelings before they are articulated. This capacity for deep emotional insight makes introverts exceptionally loyal, empathetic, and responsive partners when trust has been established. However, this same depth makes introverts vulnerable. Emotional injuries, betrayals, or misunderstandings linger longer than for those who externalize quickly. An offhand comment or perceived slight can be replayed mentally for days, weeks, or months. Their reflective nature, while a source of wisdom and insight, can also create cycles of overthinking and emotional rumination if boundaries, communication, and trust are not established. Introverts thrive in relationships that respect their need for space and quiet reflection. They require partners who understand that periods of solitude are not rejection, but restoration. They need the freedom to process feelings internally before responding. Pressuring an introvert for immediate emotional expression can lead to stress, withdrawal, or miscommunication. Patience, empathy, and understanding are the foundations of harmony with an introverted partner. In romantic dynamics, introverts often prefer depth over frequency. Long conversations about meaningful topics are far more satisfying than casual chatter. Shared silence is valued as much as verbal exchange because it allows space for mutual reflection and connection without the drain of constant stimulation. Physical presence, attentiveness, and consistency often communicate more powerfully than words alone. Introverts also approach intimacy thoughtfully. They are attuned to emotional rhythms, nonverbal cues, and relational dynamics. Their empathy allows them to sense discomfort, joy, or insecurity before it is expressed. This sensitivity can create deeply satisfying partnerships, but can also expose them to emotional vulnerability if their partner does not reciprocate awareness or care. Attachment for introverts is nuanced. They form fewer but deeper connections. Casual or superficial relationships often feel draining or meaningless. They invest energy selectively, reserving emotional bandwidth for those they trust and value. Loyalty, consistency, and honesty are the currencies of their relational world, and they respond best to partners who respect the same principles. Introverts often communicate love differently. They may show affection through small, thoughtful gestures, listening attentively, or consistent presence rather than overt displays or grand declarations. These behaviors are deliberate expressions of care, demonstrating depth, reliability, and mindfulness. Recognizing these forms of communication is key to understanding introverted affection. Challenges arise when external expectations clash with introverted patterns. Society often values verbal expressiveness, spontaneity, and demonstrative affection. Introverts may feel pressure to conform, creating stress, inauthenticity, or emotional exhaustion. Relationships flourish when both partners understand and honor natural tendencies rather than forcing adaptation to external norms. Emotional intimacy for introverts is built gradually. They need to feel psychologically safe before exposing vulnerabilities. Once this safety is established, introverts are capable of extraordinary empathy, loyalty, and insight. They are capable of sustaining relationships through challenges, maintaining consistency, and providing support without requiring validation or attention in return. Ultimately, understanding love and intimacy in introverts requires appreciating depth, patience, and reflection. Their relational style is not passive. It is intentional. It is a choice made with awareness, grounded in values, emotional intelligence, and the desire for meaningful connection. When respected, introverted love is enduring, transformative, and profoundly rich. The interplay of emotional depth, reflection, and selective engagement shapes not only romantic relationships, but also friendships, familial bonds, and professional interactions. In every sphere, introverts seek connection that is authentic, meaningful, and reciprocal, emphasizing quality over quantity, depth over speed, and intention over appearance. In the following chapter, we will explore the challenges introverts face with overthinking, emotional memory, and internalized stress, revealing how their reflective nature can be both a strength and a source of vulnerability. Chapter 7. The burden of overthinking and emotional memory. Introverts often carry experiences longer and more deeply than those around them. Events that might be dismissed or quickly forgotten by others are stored, analyzed, and reflected upon repeatedly in an introvert's mind. This tendency is neither weakness nor exaggeration. It is the natural rhythm of a reflective and deeply processing brain. Every interaction, word, and observation can be revisited mentally, examined for hidden meaning, and integrated into internal frameworks of understanding. This capacity for deep reflection is a powerful tool. It allows introverts to notice patterns, anticipate consequences, and make thoughtful decisions. Lessons are learned not superficially, but at layers of emotional, cognitive, and moral significance. Creativity, problem-solving, and wisdom often emerge from these mental processes. Many introverts excel in fields requiring careful analysis, nuanced judgment, and long-term planning precisely because of their reflective nature. However, this depth of processing comes with challenges. Replaying experiences mentally can easily become overthinking. Conversations are revisited, actions are questioned, and outcomes are analyzed repeatedly. This internal rehearsal can provide clarity, but can also generate doubt, anxiety, or indecision. The mind, in its diligence to understand, can trap itself in loops that are mentally exhausting. Emotional memory compounds this effect. Introverts encode experiences not only cognitively, but also emotionally. Feelings are entwined with events, creating a rich but heavy psychological record. A moment of criticism or perceived slight is not just remembered, it is felt again and again, sometimes long after the event has passed. Joy, love, and success are similarly stored with depth, providing satisfaction and emotional reward. But negative experiences often linger disproportionately, intensifying self-doubt and internal pressure. Overthinking is not inherently destructive. It becomes problematic when reflection is repetitive rather than constructive. Introverts may analyze scenarios that cannot be changed, imagine hypothetical outcomes endlessly, or fixate on decisions already made. This mental repetition can interfere with sleep, focus, and emotional stability. It can create stress that appears internally silent, yet manifests as fatigue, irritability, or social withdrawal. Many introverts struggle to differentiate between productive reflection and rumination. Reflection leads to insight, learning, and clarity. Rumination leads to mental exhaustion, self-criticism, and emotional stagnation. Understanding this distinction is essential for introverts to maintain psychological health. Mindfulness, journaling, and deliberate self-talk are techniques that allow the mind to process experiences without becoming trapped in repetitive loops. The tendency toward overthinking also influences decision-making. Introverts prefer to weigh options carefully, often considering long-term consequences, ethical implications, and emotional outcomes before acting. While this produces thoughtful and deliberate choices, external environments that demand speed or visible decisiveness can create pressure, making introverts feel inadequate or slow. Recognizing their natural processing style allows introverts to approach decisions with confidence rather than self-criticism. Social interactions are particularly prone to replaying and overanalysis. Introverts may recall conversations, subtle gestures, or unspoken tones repeatedly. Misunderstandings, perceived social mistakes, or minor conflicts can occupy mental energy disproportionately. Without intentional regulation, this overprocessing can lead to self-consciousness, hesitation, or avoidance, affecting confidence and relational engagement. Emotional memory also contributes to empathy. Because introverts encode experiences deeply, they can understand and resonate with others' feelings intuitively. This sensitivity enables compassion, emotional support, and perspective-taking. Yet it also increases vulnerability to absorbing others' emotional burdens, particularly in stressful or toxic environments. Introverts must learn to protect their emotional energy while maintaining empathy. Overthinking and emotional memory are not flaws. They are byproducts of a mind attuned to depth, insight, and meaning. The key is learning balance. Introverts who cultivate awareness, reflection tools, and emotional regulation can harness these tendencies as strengths rather than being overwhelmed by them. When managed effectively, the reflective mind becomes a source of wisdom, creativity, emotional intelligence, and psychological resilience. Introverts experience the world through layers of perception, thought, and feeling that are denser and more sensitive than many may realize. This heightened sensitivity extends to experiences of trauma and stress. When adverse events occur, introverts do not merely react outwardly. They internalize, process, and store experiences in complex emotional and cognitive frameworks. A single traumatic event can ripple across their inner world for months or years, subtly influencing thought patterns, emotional responses, and social behavior. Because introverts rely on internal processing, they often absorb stress without visible signs. They may appear composed while internally negotiating fear, anxiety, and uncertainty. This internalization is both a strength and a vulnerability. It allows introverts to analyze, strategize, and adapt, but it also increases the likelihood of prolonged psychological impact if trauma is unrecognized or unresolved. Conflict, criticism, and tension are experienced more intensely and persistently. Even indirect stressors, such as overheard conversations or social dynamics, can affect their mental state. Unlike those who externalize stress through verbal expression or physical action, introverts absorb it silently, leading to cumulative internal pressure. Over time, this can manifest as chronic stress, self-doubt, irritability, or emotional fatigue. This internalized stress is often compounded by social expectation. Introverts may feel compelled to perform in social, professional, or family environments, suppressing natural responses in order to meet external standards. The dissonance between internal experience and external expectation creates additional strain, intensifying feelings of exhaustion, anxiety, and disconnection. Trauma affects introverts differently than it affects more externally expressive individuals. While extroverts may seek immediate support, introverts are more likely to process trauma privately. They reflect on events, search for meaning, and attempt to regain internal equilibrium before sharing or seeking assistance. This approach can foster resilience and insight, but without proper support, it can also lead to isolation, emotional suppression, and delayed healing. Emotional hyperawareness is common among introverts following stressful experiences. They are finely tuned to subtle cues, both in themselves and others, which can trigger reminders of trauma or reinforce stress. While this sensitivity allows for empathy, discernment, and foresight, it also leaves introverts vulnerable to prolonged anxiety or hypervigilance. Introverts may develop internal coping strategies that are highly effective but largely invisible. Reflection, journaling, creative expression, and solitude help them regulate emotions and restore balance. However, in high-pressure environments that limit space for introspection, these coping mechanisms are often disrupted, leaving the individual overwhelmed and struggling to maintain equilibrium. The psychological effects of trauma in introverts can influence relationships profoundly. They may withdraw from social interaction, hesitate to trust, or avoid emotional vulnerability, not from lack of desire, but from self-protection. When external observers misinterpret this behavior as disinterest or detachment, it can exacerbate feelings of misunderstanding and isolation. Understanding introverted responses to trauma requires seeing beyond outward appearances to the internal landscape of thought, feeling, and reflection. Over time, unaddressed internalized stress can manifest as physical symptoms, tension headaches, gastrointestinal discomfort, sleep disruption, and fatigue. The mind-body connection is particularly pronounced in introverts because emotional experiences are deeply internalized. Recognizing and addressing both the psychological and somatic impact of trauma is crucial for sustaining health, productivity, and well-being. Healing and resilience for introverts involve creating environments that honor reflection, provide safety, and encourage gradual processing. Supportive relationships, opportunities for meaningful dialogue, and space for solitude are critical. Introverts benefit from therapies that allow narrative exploration, emotional regulation, and cognitive reframing, enabling them to integrate traumatic experiences without compromising their natural rhythms. Ultimately, the interplay of introversion, trauma sensitivity, and internalized stress reveals both the strengths and vulnerabilities of the introverted psyche. Their capacity for deep reflection fosters insight, empathy, and emotional intelligence. But without awareness and support, it can also amplify distress. Recognizing this duality empowers introverts to navigate stress and trauma with understanding, resilience, and authenticity.